Electric Cafe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. In this video, I'll be sharing with you, also reviewing and scoring 1994 album by Portishead called Dummy. This is their debut album. A lot of people think this is a classic of trip-hop and just of down-tempo music in general. I can't say I'm that high on it. I do think it's a really good album, but I do think there's some flaws on it. I do think it maybe hasn't dated it as well, but I do think there's some really good music on here as well. And, it starts out with, I think one of the highlights is Beth Gibbons' voice. Sometimes she's sultry and alluring and kind of like a moody blues feel, a little bit cabaret. I love her voice on the track called Numb, for example. I also really like the moody guitar, creative drumming for the most part. I do like the darker edge. There's a mysterious kind of down-tempo edge to the album. Certainly with like the artwork and some of the videos are very kind of like, dark room, kind of like smoky lounge kind of feel. There's some unique sounds in this album as well, like the theremin and Mysterons. Also some unique songs for the time, which I think Sour Times, track number 2, one of my favorite songs on the album. I think that one's really creative. But there are some, and it's led by Sour Times. That's my favorite song on the album. I'm sorry, Rhodes is my favorite song on the album. The drums are more gentle on here. The snare, still a little bit too loud on this track, but it's more full sounding track and more of a complete track. Rhodes is my favorite. Sour Times is my second favorite. I also really like Mysterons and also Wandering Star. It Could Be Sweet is really good as well. Deep bass, and love the drum and bass edge on this track. There's a lot of good tracks on here, but there are some small concerns I have on the album. For example, like the scratching in some of the tracks is very dated sounding. In fact, Mysterons, Wandering Star, and Pedestal all have scratching in it. The drums haven't dated that well. I'm not sure it really helps the album fully. The sort of drumming they do. I don't mind them being a little too loud in the mix. It's just the fills are very basic, like in the track called Biscuit. Just the fills are very, very basic, and sometimes they're overly crunchy, and it's part of the dynamics or balance, but I think it kind of takes away from the song, like in Strangers, where if you compare it to It Could Be Sweet, it's a lot smoother. There's clever production on some of the tracks, I think, and like the reverse drums and Mysterions or the keys, and It Could Be Sweet. But overall, I think it's a good album. I wouldn't put it on the high side of a very good album, but I think it's a really solid album, really good album. And there's a couple excellent tracks and quite a few very good tracks. But I think half the album is pretty good to good as far as like being in the sixes, mostly in the sixes, and a couple tracks in the fives. But I think it's a solid overall album. But I'm not over the moon by it. I'm not a huge Portishead fan. This is the only album that I have by them. This is the only album that I know by them. Maybe if somebody else wants to recommend another album by them, I'll end up checking them out. But I've never heard any other album besides this one. But I've had this since it came out, and I've enjoyed it. There's some good tracks on here for sure, and some excellent tracks. But I don't highly regard it as much as a lot of other people do. But having said that, I give the album a 68 out of 100. And you'll see my scores on the tracks individually as we go. But yeah, if there's something you'd like me to review in a future video, just send me a message. My email is down below. And I'd love to know your opinion on Portishead and Dummy, and maybe what you think about some of it haven't aged as well. Maybe some of the drumming or the production, maybe some of the decisions on that, or maybe the direction of some tracks haven't really aged as well as maybe one might think. And I think maybe some differences I think if they would have gone a little bit more smooth instead of a little bit more crunchy in the beats, I think that would have been I think to go more lounge and down tempo would have been better than to be a little bit more edgy and kind of go into I wouldn't say go into any kind of like, I think of like Swerve, for example, kind of going into the industrial beats. It's not like they went into industrial beats, but they're kind of going into some almost drum and bass in here. I mean, there's some, just some heavier beats, some heavier electronic beats. I don't think that was the way to go. I don't see that as, I mean, you could, maybe they just don't do it as well as Massive Attack did. If I was to compare this to Massive Attack album, maybe they just don't do it as well as far as like the bigger, crunchier hip hop beats or urban beats. But Beth Gibbons' voice is obviously a standout part of it, and I do think there's obviously some really good songs in here. I don't want to make you feel like I don't like this CD. I did give it a 68/100. I think it's a good CD, and it's on the high side of a good CD. I just can't say it's in the 70s and say it's a very good CD. It's just not on that level for me personally. I'm kind of missing some depth in here, maybe a little bit more balance of tracks in here. Some ambient pieces. A couple more standout tracks like Roads and Sour Times, and maybe another track like that would take it over the edge. Certainly from a score perspective, one more 8 would certainly push it over into the 70s. Then I could say it was a very good album.